This is the Internet Court of Truth and Lies. Its purpose is if you see something in the media that you think is a lie or you think is the truth, you can dissect the lie in order to make a case for whether or not it's a lie or truth, and have 8 other people also dissect the truth or lie to see what they think. What's interesting about this is inevitably the person who believes something's the truth or a lie sees how other people take what he says. It's a great experience because a lot of what other people think he hadn't really thought of before. It's a really nice way to have a dialogue on the internet where most of social media is just people screaming at each other and no actual dialogue. Today, I'm the plaintiff for a trial that I call remotely melting snow. I'm in the middle of a pretty severe snowstorm, very cold weather, Arctic vortex stuff. It really hasn't gone above about -10 Celsius in 2 weeks here. This snow fell about a week and a half ago, 30 feet from me. I took this picture about 30 minutes ago. That snow is 2 feet deep. You could see it was partially melting because of the house. As the snow melted from the house, it froze in icicles. That gives you an idea of how cold it's been. It's been in Fahrenheit down to -10 degrees here. In Pittsburgh, where I live, this is a pretty rare event, particularly to have such cold weather over such a long period of time. This drove me to the question. We were out having to shovel the snow. It would be really nice if I had a ray gun and I could just point the ray gun at the snow and the snow would go away. I was wondering how you do it. I knew that all you really could use is electromagnetic radiation, which is light. So at some frequency of light, whether it's visible light or invisible light, radio waves, X-rays are all invisible forms of light. But at some frequency of light, you could melt snow because light can be directed. You could direct the energy from the light onto the snow from a distance. I could sit back in my armchair and melt the snow without having to go out and shovel. I hypothesized if for that ray gun to melt the snow really fast, I want to use the highest energy light I could use. I knew from physics that higher energy light is over in the blue side of the spectrum, not in the red side. Ultraviolet, for example, is much more high energy than infrared. Infrared is low energy light. And I found this diagram. So I hypothesized, I said, well, maybe ultraviolet light would melt snow faster than a heat lamp. It's difficult to make a directed heat lamp. And so the thought was the ultraviolet, you could get rid of the snow, and hopefully it would be good enough that if I wanted to just turn the snow into rain, I could shine the ultraviolet light into the snow and the snow would all turn into rain as it was falling, and it would not therefore freeze because it would all stay liquid or something. Anyway, I was just guessing. I found this great graph. I'm going to try to explain the graph. This is the absorption of light of any wavelength by water. So snow is just water, ice is just water, liquid water is just water. Water is water. So it's a single molecule. Light will be absorbed by that molecule or not. And it turns out that the physics here, this is the result of many experiments over many years, where they map the absorption of light by water or by ice or by snow. And here's visible light, the little color thing you see there, that's the visible light spectrum, light that your eyes can see. And if you look at this spectrum, it says that the light in the light frequencies that the eye can see, water absorbs almost none of that light. It just transmits it. It's the reason that water is clear, is the light is not absorbed by the water. It's maybe refracted or bent a little bit by the water or reflected off, but light will go right through the water in these wavelengths. But the surprise to me was that as you get over into the ultraviolet, which is here, and just to do a reading on this, visible light is in this range. So this is 1 micrometer or 1/1,000,000th of a meter is the wavelength of the light right along here. And this is 100 billionths of a meter here. And so you can see at 100 billionths of a meter, the light waves are completely absorbed by the water. In other words, the water is like an opaque surface. It's like a black surface to ultraviolet light. And ultraviolet light will not go through water. The absorption per meter here, which is how they measure the absorption, in visible light, it's 100 nanometers, which is ultraviolet light, 10 to the 8th of the light is absorbed. Once you get past visible light in the blue, which is ultraviolet light cannot go through water. It just gets absorbed by it. It gets absorbed very quickly. And the top few molecules of the water just absorb all the light. And so that's the higher energy light. And so that should, you'd think, melt the snow faster. With the lower energy of the light, you can see, which is out in infrared, mid-infrared, far infrared, and EHF, which is some very low frequency. The light is also absorbed by water. If you were able to see an infrared and you were looking at a puddle of water, all you'd see is black. It would just be like a black soup. You couldn't see through it. Similarly, for if you were just in an ultraviolet world and you tried to look through water, it would just look black. But the light that we see is in this narrow region of the spectrum. And you might ask why it's in that narrow region. It turns out just asking this first question of can we use ultraviolet? And with this one graph, we can discover some incredible things about why all animals that have eyes have to see in this part of the spectrum. The reason is their eyes have water in them. Getting the light through the eyeball to the retina, the ultraviolet or infrared light is blocked long before it can get to the retina. This is a really interesting thing that says basically what evolution did, since all animals grew up in a world with water in their eyes, that in order for them to see part of the spectrum, they needed to be in this one little range of the spectrum where we see visible light. This is proof is that all animals see roughly in the same spectrum. Some will see a little further into the infrared or a little further into the ultraviolet, but not much. So it'll be between these two places here. They'll be able to see something. By the time you get up here, in other words, you get to this part of the spectrum or that part of the spectrum, they're not seeing anything but black. Physics basically limits all animals to being able to see where the water is not absorbing the frequency. This is a crazy great graph. But still didn't answer the question, why can't I just use ultraviolet light? Because that's higher energy. It should melt the ice faster because it's hotter, okay, as far as the energy being delivered.
Yeah. It's worth remembering that insects don't have water in their eyes, and they have a
Right.
different,
And, you know,
and they
right.
see have a different spectrum. They see
Yeah.
different part of the spectrum.
Yes, absolutely. Andrew is exactly right. There are some eyes that do not have water in them. Those are known to be able to see further into the spectrum. Yeah.
Did Grok generate this graph for you?
No, this was on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
So I just said something like, what's, I don't know what I said, but I saw this graph and I recognized it for what it was because I'm used to seeing things like nanometers. I can interpret what the graph said, and I was just, oh my God, I don't believe this is a great graph. But it turns out Grok answered the question. I asked Grok, I said, why can't I build a ray gun that puts out ultraviolet light that melts snow faster than infrared will do it? And so I thought that would be a great invention, right? Grok says no. What's nice about this is a great use of Grok because you're asking Grok to look at the scientific literature and make an explanation of something. So you're asking it a question that if it answers, it's probably right. And this particular answer is heavily backed by this graph that I found on Wikipedia, which explains a lot about what we know, we all know. By the way, snow is white because all the visible light, but the infrared or ultraviolet light is absorbed. The most snow can do is reflect all the white light and refract all the white light. It just bounces off all the surfaces, but it's the white light that winds up being bounced. White is just the sum of all the colors. If you sum all those colors together, you get white. There's also a similar explanation of this of why the sky is blue, but I won't get into that. But that can be described the same way by how water was absorbing. It pointed out another aspect of this, and this, Andrew, does affect what you were saying, is out here in the ultraviolet around 100 nanometers, a wavelength, which is a very short wavelength. The ultraviolet light is so energetic that it tears the atoms up. Literally, the electrons are broken away from the atoms. And so you have, the water is no longer water. Once you're out here in this ultraviolet, it's basically tearing up the surface of whatever the ultraviolet light is pointing at. The first few layers of atoms are being ripped apart. But they're not being heated. The atoms as wholes are not vibrating. But if you go to lower energies, like infrared and far infrared, the light is too low of an energy to break the atoms apart. And so the atoms don't get broken apart, but they vibrate faster. At these lower energies, that's where heat happens. So this is the heating that happens. And then the heating conductively heats the atoms below the surface atoms. And so it melts the snow. This is another aspect of why this is so cool, is right around here, somewhere in these, it'll be different for different substances and so forth and so on, but definitely down to 100 nanometers. Grok correctly points out that light is so energetic that it breaks up the surface atoms. The atoms do not start vibrating, they just fall apart. There's no heat really created. They just become energetic pieces. And so it doesn't heat things very well, which is what you need to melt. You need the molecules themselves to vibrate. This also says that if you get up into these ultraviolet ranges, if your eyes were sensitive to those ranges, they probably couldn't be sensitive in organic chemistry because you wouldn't be able to see up very far here. You can see some more than we can see, but ultimately the ultraviolet light is literally this breaking up the atoms. and so making the chemistry not work that allows an animal to see through a neuron. So this is a really interesting thing. The other thing that Grok says, which I thought was cool, was he said, yeah, there are lasers that operate in the infrared, CO2 lasers. They could be effective for ice and snow because they operate at 10.6 micrometers, which is right up here. They point out that people have invented CO2 laser means for quickly melting ice. And CO2 laser will quickly melt ice in a non-destructive way. So it'll melt the ice on an aircraft wing without heating the aluminum underneath the ice, which is cool. As I mentioned, that icebreakers, the ships, there are some icebreakers that have experimented with using big CO2 lasers to break up the ice or melt the ice in front of the icebreaker. But in general, Grok said, just use infrared light. Use one of these things that puts out infrared all around it, and that's going to be your best bet to melt the snow without you having to shovel it. Then, of course, if you do that and it's very cold weather, what'll happen is what's happened here in this picture on the side of my house, which is the ice melted because of the roof of the house, the heat that we were generating in the house, and then the snow melted and then turned into ice before it hit the ground, to give you an idea of how cold it was, how cold it is. They say the problem with these lasers and these magic machines to melt ice is that if the ambient temperature is too cold, the ice that you melt and turn it into liquid water will freeze really quickly. So you might as well not even think about doing this. So the right answer that came back after critically thinking through whether or not ultraviolet light would make a great snow removal tool is get the shovel out or the snowblower out and just blow the snow or shovel it away, because we don't have a good solution to this. It all interacts with Einstein's original quantum equation that the electromagnetic wavelength of light gives you is a straight line linear relationship to the light energy, the amount of energy in the light, the ability of the light to push something or to cause something to get moved. Light that animals use is right in this area here. And it turns out that that's the sweet spot, because out in this ultraviolet area, you're breaking up the atoms and chemistry doesn't work. And over here, you're heating things, but the water is absorbing all the light. Although the absorption is heating it, which is good, unlike ultraviolet, it's heating it, but once it's just heating it, you can't see through it. What physics or reality taught animals, it had to be this way. And this is why it had to be this way. It has to do with the absorption of electromagnetic radiation by water, which that is the curve for that. I thought this was a great example of asking a question, getting the physics and forcing you to critically think about something that you never really thought about, why you see IR lamps everywhere and you don't see ultraviolet lamps melting snow. This explains it. So using an LLM, in this case Grok, I'm sure Jim and I would have done the same thing or some very similar. But they're only as good as the material they can read. And this is an example where the questions I was asking were pretty much assured to have been answerable through literature that would be trusted literature, because it turns out this is a pretty simple scientific answer. And so it's probably all over the literature that I don't know, but it's there. Is it the whole truth? I said, yes. Nothing but yes. And what's the deceit? I said there's no deceit. I found Grok just a beautiful answer here. I didn't see anything particularly that bothered me. I'm sure there's somebody could see something. Is the deceit of truth intended? I intended the truth, and I think that this is a great example of a useful use of LLMs to get people to think more critically about something than they might not have done otherwise. It's a great example of something that tells you why you have eyes and they work the way they do, okay, which is crazy. And it's related to why snow doesn't melt in ultraviolet light. What's the motivation behind the truth or a lie? It's to be informative, social acceptability. I always say that this is a case where you can use this as a demonstration of when an LLM can facilitate critical thinking about something. It would have taken me hours to have found the same result, I think, if I were trying to Google this, because I wouldn't know where I was going. And Google wasn't going to give me a direct, an informative answer, whereas Grok and these new LLMs do. What's the label? I just said no label was needed. So we can go through the jurors and get a 20 to 30-second summary of your verdict. I'm really curious to see what other people thought. If you didn't follow what I said, make sure you tell me you didn't follow what I said, because I'd love to figure out what it was I said that I somehow said the wrong thing or didn't quite communicate it right. Juror one?
That's me. And I wish it wasn't me as juror one today, because my brain just will not wrap around, I guess, the science and this, because whenever you was talking about being able to see through the water, my brain went to sonar technology, how they use sonar to see through water and things like that.
Very long wavelengths. They're not electromagnetic waves.
But then I'm sitting here and I'm like, I just don't understand this. So do you want to build a snowman? That's, yeah. Because instead of, and there's a thing to that also, why worry about melting it whenever it's just going to cause something to hurt you? Because when you slip on that ice after it melts, it's going to hurt when you fall.
Yeah, well, that's why that's basically what the Grok was saying too. He was saying that the problem is that you might melt it, but it'll just refreeze if it's really cold.
Yeah. So build a snowman instead of an ice skating rink.
Yeah. So, juror two?
Yeah, this week that's actually me. So the root thing you were discussing was using LLMs to address practical problems.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's fantastic. I do that constantly, daily. And in the chat, as a matter of fact, I pulled that photo that you posted.
Yeah,
and I ran it through Gemini with some prompting to get it to actually give me the best. And I mean, if not the promotional materials, but I got it to give me 3 methods for how best to clear the snow from your yard. So assuming that photo depicted a yard about 20 feet wide by 40 feet deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that the snow is an average of 2 feet deep. You'll see in the chat that I copy pasted Gemini's results of why IR is superior to UV, and that they both lose out to, as you said, physical labor and solar power. But that was a matter of a couple of minutes to just go ahead and go through that.
So they were saying basically the same thing.
Yeah. After going through, because the albedo of snow is different from the albedo of water. So it's
That's
not
the reflectivity, yeah.
Yeah, so UV on its face appears to be effective, but in practicality, it's not. And IR is superior. But then again, IR is also expensive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so UV is very effective at dissociating the surface layer, which just affects the albedo.
But it creates a layer of ice.
Well, the albedo is a surface effect. which is the first few molecules deep.
Yes.
And yes, absolutely. Since the absorption of light is the first few molecules, the reflection of light is the first few molecules, and the refraction of light is the first few molecules. And so all of that, so the albedo is affecting the reflection
Yeah.
differently. Yeah.
As
So
you stated earlier, the UV interacts with electrons, as opposed to IR, which interacts with the molecules. So for the stated purpose of getting the snow to run off, IR would be superior in that regard. But that being said, I posted it all in the chat. It's right there. But that was fun. So I love this topic. This is great. I love me some AI.
yeah, so this is
Yeah,
great.
the thing
This
about
is,
UV is that you can dissociate the molecules, so then they immediately disappear into vapor.
yeah.
So
Now you're
in
talking about
infrared, you actually have to
sublimation.
go
Well,
And
infrared, you have to
this is
sublimation
transition
actually
doesn't work like
water
that.
phase.
vaporization. So you can, yeah, you can hit it with high enough energy. Okay.
Yeah, but you're discussing the process of sublimation to move it from one state to another state and skipping the interim state. And the amount of energy it would take UV to do that with 2 feet deep snow is
A lot.
a lot. Yes, a lot. But anyway, thank you. I'll shut up now.
Okay. Juror 3.
That's me, Bob. Yeah, I understood parts of what you said. I'm not a scientist, but I believe what you said. I trust what you said. Just for interest sake, it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit where I'm right now, so I
Just
don't have
be
a problem
quiet.
here.
I grew up in the South. They're complaining down there and it's 50. They're complaining
But
about how cold it is down there.
Muhammad,
yeah,
comments like that will get you demoted from moderator status.
that's a cold comment.
Just kidding, but I thought it was
I-
pretty fire to say.
yeah. But yeah, I agreed with you. An LLM it's only, or any LLM or any AI is only as good as the data. If the quality of the data is of a very high
If
order,
you,
then you're going to
if
get the
you,
answer that you're looking for.
yeah, if you ask it questions where the data sources cannot give very unqualified answers, then it will give poor answers. It can be misled, just like a person
Yeah.
could be misled. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, and it can be trained to give you the wrong answer. It can.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You can train them to deceive people. It's
Yeah.
very sad, but true. Read a lot of fiction.
Yeah.
Uh,
I learned
oh,
something, although I don't need to know about snow. Yeah.
it'll snow there eventually.
One
You
day, yeah.
go south a little bit further. Juror 4.
Yes, hello everybody. I have learned to write down my summary during the trial and before the trial so that I don't forget along the way as we do our little different things. But what I agree with Brian, your basic thing was LLMs have opened up they add to your critical thinking. They've opened up a whole new world for me, worlds. They give me so many directions I can take my research in, and they help me get there, but I have to put in the right prompts, ask the right questions, etc. It doesn't take over thinking for me. It just makes it easier to find what I'm thinking about and gives me so many more options to pursue. I also love AI.
So what I say about AI are the
LLMs.
implementations of perceptrons, which is all these things are models of animal brain computations to me. These LLMs are, and LLMs, they're natural language speaking people. They're going to have the same faults that people have, but they have something that people don't have, which is they have a funny form of perfect memory. Their retrieval. So with human brains, the retrieval can take 2 or 3 days to retrieve something, or a minute, or 20 seconds, or so retrieving different things that you might want to put into something to explain something can take days just to remember. Whereas the LLMs are doing this stuff instantaneously because they're using digital memories that are flawless.
And they're also educating us. You know what I mean?
And so they can be used
That's
to
no
educate us and to bring back memories of things that we would have forgotten before.
Yeah. Careful, Teresa. Careful.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, thank you.
But sadly, they're also could be trained to be very deadly, which is
Exactly. But they just help me in my researching. I can
Yeah.
decide what I want to believe from there.
yeah. So juror 5.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I find this case very interesting for reasons which I'll get to in a moment. But it's like my work, my whole daily life is trying to come up with creative and original thoughts. And LMMs are a terrible temptation. You think that they're giving you good stuff or real stuff, but it really isn't the case. I feel like we're back in the Garden of Eden again, with the temptation of the knowledge, which isn't really good enough. It's not real enough. About this particular issue, which I find very interesting, but for I have a completely different answer to your conundrum. Star Trek lasers aside, for example, none of my going into LLMs came up with another solution, which is sublimation. Now, if you could use Gemini, will tell you sublimation, you can't use it. It needs 7 times more energy than using infrared. But this is not true if you come down to the triple point of water, which you can use using a vacuum pump. And in fact, there are plenty of mechanical vacuum pumps on the market that will bring your atmosphere down to about 0.006
Right, I can't use that as
and you can
I can't use that
sublimate
as
direct.
I can't use that as a directed weapon.
No, we said that's what you weren't really wanting to.
I want to sit in my chair and clear.
No, you wanted to shoot people or something.
I want to just shoot the snow.
Anyway, I'm just saying, and also as Teresa says, that LLMs require an awful lot of work to extract some useful information out of them. You can't just simply tap in a simple 2-sentence prompt and expect to get
actually,
the right
those
stuff.
were the only 2 questions I asked Grok. I got it all at one. Yeah. Now, I was educated well enough to know what I wanted to know in a way that I hoped that Grok could answer me.
Yeah.
And my education was this graph. I'd gone to Wikipedia.
Anyway, all this is to say is that this has prompted me to design a sublimation machine that will clear sidewalks of frozen ice in no time.
Yeah, I could see putting a machine over it, but then I have a snowplow that's electric that makes short work, but it doesn't make short work of a path in a yard, which is what you see right behind me. That snowplow would not have a happy time on that path.
That's right. But just to say, it's interesting that neither of the LLMs that I queried nor Grok came up with a sublimation answer, which actually does. It's one of the reasons why planes don't always get covered in ice, is because it sublimates before it has a chance to condense when they're up because of the low atmospheric pressure that they're driving in.
Absolutely true. Yeah. That's, by the way, if everybody heard that, that's a very important thing. The reason that planes, when they're flying at 30,000 feet, don't collect ice is the ice is sublimating from the vacuum.
That's right.
At a low temperature. Yeah. Okay, so this sounds great. Okay, juror 6.
Hello. I was just laughing when juror 3 was speaking because the thought of snow alone sounds so nice because it's so hot where I am at the moment. I did prepare a summary, but I think it would just reiterate the things that the other jurors were saying. But basically what I said was Grok AI, like other AI LLMs, does not have physical power. It cannot generate heat, control weather, or directly melt snow from a distance. It works with language, data, and decision-making, but not physical action. So at the end of the day, human operators and physical infrastructure remains essential. Although it would be nice to have something do all the work for you, but it's not possible at the moment. I remember when we were younger, we used to say, when you're hungry, oh, I wish the microwave would make the food for me. But it's not going to happen.
Of course, Optimus robot is all there for you as soon as they perfect it. It's supposed to be the thing between the LLM and the real world that lets the LLM control everything.
But nevertheless, a very interesting case, by the way.
Okay, sounds good. So juror 7.
Do you want to build a snowman? I'm joking, Mr. Roberts. You're pretty much happy about the snow. So I'm also from the South, so we don't really much experience that. So I was reading through the article, through the YouTube video, and I was like, Okay, what did you eventually get towards a solution? Because it was a lot, and I saw the cons of using the laser or your gun. It was like expensive and it's dangerous for your eyes. And I was like, you might just use that shovel. And I saw towards the end, you were like, let me use my shovel. What I have for the case is that I think AI is cool. It's to use for critical thinking. It's useful, and especially when you're trying to organize your thoughts or weighing your pros and cons, especially, I think it showed that in the article.
Yeah,
And
so I think I think what I find interesting about this case is precisely that it's a great demonstration of what critical thinking really is.
yeah.
So it's a great example of where sort of a naive view, which is the way I went in at it, which is why doesn't ultraviolet work better than infrared? Okay, because it's got a higher energy. It should work better than infrared. And all of a sudden, I discover why all animals see in the same wavelengths, water. And oh my God, now I know the answer to a question I wasn't even asking. That's what that's the reason critical thinking is fun.
Yeah. So basically, I just want to say, yeah, I think AI should be used with a grain of salt sometimes. But I think other jurors also mentioned this, how your input is important to getting your output, how you phrase your question and the sources that you put in to refine your work. As I think Teresa mentioned, she does it for research and stuff. Yeah, I think it's good, but should be used appropriately, because I know there's some sort of investigation going on with Grok, according to, I think it's related to using images of minors inappropriately. So it's all dependent on the how we use it. It is great on its own, but how we use it is very important. And you know what I don't like about AI? It's how it continuously tries to refine and expand ideas. It doesn't necessarily say stop.
That's
This
their
is okay.
conversational algorithm. Yeah. So yes, ChatGPT was the first one out with this, and it really used the sort of bad conversational goals, and they tried to improve it. It's the reason that these LLMs that are available to everybody should be trained correctly and be given the right goals, so that when so they are actually being informative and engage you in helping think through things good way. In AI, we used to call schema, conversational schema, or narrative schemas, which is what you see them doing when they're speaking multiple sentences. They're following a schema, what we used to back in the 70s call schemas. And so they have to be given good ones so that they come back with healthy narratives. Yes. So is Jure?
Hi. So I'll just give a summary that I've summarized from my side. I like AI and it's very smart for me. And I'm also from the south, so here we don't experience snow this side. But by melting snow will obviously involve using technologies like radiation systems, heating systems. So I don't mind like AI having those. I'm sure AI will have a smart tool or smart system for melting snow easily. And even if it's absorb the snow into water and then can just let the water flow through, I'm sure that will help.
If it can do it. Yeah, its problem was
Only,
if the ambient
only if,
temperature is too cold, once you turn it into water, if you don't keep the radiation on it and feeding it with more heat, it will immediately turn to ice. And
okay.
and so basically what Grok was saying in this particular case, and the LLMs are saying, is shovel it, shovel the snow, or because shoveling does move the snow before it turns into ice,
Yes,
and it's
it's
easier.
also
And
not a bad idea to just shovel it away. Yes.
yeah, this is one where you would hope that his robot would say, if you tell it to get rid of the snow, it would pick up a shovel and shovel it. It wouldn't say, I could use our light. I could use my funny light or something. It would just pick up a show. Just say, this is the best we can do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this sounds good. I think this is good, and we'll have another trial next week. I may be reaching out to some people about working on some of these. Oh, do y'all know who Reid Hoffman is?
I don't. Right offhand.
Is anybody there here? No. Reid Hoffman is the original founder of LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
He has a venture fund whose job it is to improve the dialogue on the internet.
Oh, wow.
And I would love to meet somebody who knows him, because he's also worth several $billion. Getting through to him is like getting through to a brick wall.
Can AI help
it's
you?
like being ultraviolet light trying to get through water.
I guess AI can't help, huh?
Do we have to do the Epstein files?
Yeah, you have to go to the Epstein. He is in the Epstein files, by the way.
Oh,
Actually, he seems like a nice guy. But I'm trying to find somebody who knows him. If I can find somebody who I know knows him, that's a possibility that I could actually get a conversation with him. And he could allow us to go to 1 million trials.
Bob, I do have several contacts in the journalism field, and I'm sure somebody.
Ask around. It's Reid Hoffman, REID Hoffman, HOFFMAN.
All right, I'll see what I can find out for you.
If you know somebody, they have to know him.
I wonder if there's a way you could put into Grok or whatever connections you have that you think might know him.
No,
and
I
they
have.
see if there's a connection.
No,
I have.
Grok will give you fake telephone
Yeah.
numbers.
I got some people I can reach out to.
Yeah,
that-
just find out if somebody knows him. Like to talk to them and get them to make an introduction of me to Reid, so that I can have a conversation with Reid.
Okay.
Then I think we can convince him. By the way, he's got a degree in cognitive science.
Oh, great.
So his undergraduate degree is in cognitive science. So he is a guy who could understand this.
So you might really know somebody that knows him yourself.
I've just started this a week and a half ago. So I have some friends over at CMU who almost certainly know him. But the question is, will they make the right kind of introduction? So this sounds great. So we'll see y'all next week.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.